All right, everybody, we are live. And while we wait for some people to get through the door, let's hear our intro music. You might recognize the Griffin Warrior tomb in some of these photos.
Oh, yeah.
Where that agate came from. Okay, here we are back at Archaeology with Flint Dibble, and I'm here with a very special guest for the channel, Dr. Tenninger Kellenbarger, or Tenn, as she goes by for short, Dr. Tenn, and not 10 the number, 10 the name. And no, she is awesome. Like me, she is an academic who is an amazing public communicator. Let me pull up your stuff on screen. No, this should be the big stuff. Her PhD was to kill and to be killed, the transformation and use of the smiting pose in Egypt and the Aegean during the Bronze Age. I think we're going to be talking about some of that. And she is an amazing communicator on social media. She has a great following on TikTok and Instagram, and she has a podcast that's on podcast networks everywhere and on YouTube called The Dirt Diaries. Let me wait a second. I usually try to throw links in here.
Oh, yeah.
Here. First up for everybody is sorry, this has been like 2 weeks since I streamed. Here is her website with all the other links, I imagine. And then go subscribe to her right now on YouTube. And then if you're on we know you're on YouTube because you're watching us right here, right? So you better go subscribe. And then also Instagram and the lovely TikTok and anywhere else you find your podcasts. Those are all down in the description as well. So yeah, Tenn, it's absolutely fantastic to meet you. We first corresponded for the Real Archaeology Festival last fall.
Yes, that was our first time getting in touch, and I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity right now.
Oh, come on. You have more followers than I do. You have to be kidding me. No. Look, we each do our part to share really cool archaeology, and we're both in a similar small field. So it's actually kind of funny that we've not actually met in person or like this before. So hopefully, we'll talk some more Aegean Bronze Age stuff in the future. And you have a lovely cat, just like us. What's your cat's name?
Her name is Voodoo.
Voodoo. All right, there you go. And how do you spell that? With a U or O?
Voodoo. Voodoo.
Okay. So with the double O is how we do that. Everybody take note on that if you want to woo the cat.
The other one is asleep downstairs.
Okay, there you go. And so we're here to talk some weapons and iconography, but I did want to I want to show a quick clip of yours about something else so that people get a sense of what to expect if they follow you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one is about mystery cults, which is fun.
It's Ruin My Monday, where I talk about ruins, artifacts, and more to make your Monday suck less. And to do so, we have Pompeii archaeology news that has ties with mystery cults, one of my favorite things. New frescoes were actually just excavated in the house of Theasus in Pompeii. Now, as you can see, these paintings are nearly life-size, and they cover 3 walls in a banquet hall. Many of these scenes have red backgrounds with female figures in the center. Now, these scenes are associated with the mystery cult of Dionysus. And female followers of his are known as Maenads. Now, Maenads, it's really interesting because they will actually work themselves up into an ecstatic frenzy, with some myths and legends saying that they will rip men apart. And we have one such Maenad here. We also see satyrs represented as well. Satyrs are also known followers of Dionysus and are often depicted at initiation scenes. And we actually think that this is an initiation scene, with an older satyr with a younger woman. And mystery cults in the ancient world are, of course, super secretive. First rule about mystery cults is you don't talk about mystery cults, because ancient laws dictate that if you spill the beans, you will be killed. And not only with the cult of Dionysus, but mystery cults in general, we see themes really heavy on life, death, and rebirth. And this is such an incredible find because the only other area where there are paintings about Dionysian mystery rites comes from the Villa of the Mysteries, which is kind of in a suburb of Pompeii. But what do you guys think? Would you join the mystery cult?
I'm muted. I think I would.
It's a top one for me, honestly. There's many mystery cults back in the ancient day and time, but the mystery cult of Dionysus is pretty cool. But I'm a little bit more partial to the Eleusinian mysteries between Persephone and Demeter.
Why is that?
I just like it a little bit more. I mean,
Okay.
they're all really cool. The cult of Isis, very, very cool. The cult of Mithras, also really interesting, but because I'm not a man, I wouldn't have been allowed to be initiated.
Yeah, it's always a problem. I mean, I agree. Part of what, like you pointed out there, the Villa of the Mysteries, which I'm planning on doing a video on because we were there last year. But part of the problem is, yeah, so much of our evidence is limited. Same with Mithras to iconography. I mean, we have that liturgy of Mithras, but that's like in the magical papyri, and you
Yeah,
know,
it's also very
you're,
late.
yeah, exactly, very late. And so, but with the Eleusinian mysteries, I think we probably, despite it being hush hush, first rule, don't talk about it. They talked about it enough about the things that weren't mysteries that we have a better idea of it. And yeah,
Hmm.
um, that's another video I got to do is about drugs at the Eleusinian mysteries. That's a big one to do.
Oh,
Yeah,
the sacred drink and
yeah.
everything. And for those who want to actually look at a great reconstruction, I always tell my students to look at how the temple and the Telesterion looked like
Hmm.
in Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, definitely. Assassin's Creed Odyssey does a great job with a lot of reconstructions, actually. Yeah,
Yeah, my husband
yeah.
who just finished was super excited when we went to not Pylos, Knossos recently, so he got to see everything.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, and yeah, I mean, the Kikaon's a weird thing. That's the drink that they had. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of modern myths about it that are sort of unjustified. You know, I wrote my undergrad thesis at Penn, so in Philly. I'm from Philly, actually.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
yeah, yeah, I grew up and went to school in Philly. And so yeah, so I wrote it on drugs and ancient magic spells, and I covered parts of that stuff. So that's why I have videos on this topic. It's from my olden days when I was more of a classicist than an archaeologist.
Oh, okay, I
Um,
gotcha.
but okay, so we're gonna talk about weapons, right? And I think that's everybody's favorite topic in many ways, besides drugs. Everybody likes drugs too.
Magic, all that kind of stuff.
Archaeology, stuff like that. Um, oh, somebody asked, just to get this question out of the way, does mystery mean the same thing as it does today? Um, Not really. It means a
No.
secret is probably the right way. It actually means to be silent. So you should be silent about it.
Yeah.
And so so it's different from what we think of as an ancient mystery. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
It's, yeah, it's part of the religious faith to hold your silence and your secrecy. Um
Yep.
yeah. But let's think about weapons. And I asked you to send me some images, and I was just like, wait, what is this? I've never seen this before. Well, actually, so I was field director for this
Yep.
project. I helped find this damn tomb. This is it. This is me back in 2015, where there's more bronze than there is dirt.
Yep.
But of course, I never really saw the stuff all cleaned and conserved until it started getting published. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll finally learn something about this damn agate. Um,
Right.
Beyond just the fact that it's like has Minoan influences, which everybody knows because that's been well published and presented, obviously, by Sherry and Jack. But so yeah, so why are you fascinated with this agate?
Oh, I mean, this has been a star character in my research since its discovery, basically. And it really drove me to, write my dissertation on the aspect of the smiting pose itself. Because looking
Okay.
at the corpus of martial iconography that is available on Crete and the mainland of Greece, it instantly made me think about the smiting pose of pharaonic Egypt and also, in the kingdoms of ancient Anatolia, the Levant, and Mesopotamia, they are showing power in very similar manners. So that was really what drove me to start my dissertation topic was this piece. It featured a little bit in my master's thesis, which was on the creation of type A and B swords in the Aegean
Hmm.
world. And then this was a huge one because I know on a later slide, this scene is very reminiscent of what we see later on in Dynasty 19 with Ramses II. So it's really, really interesting to see how these different cultures and peoples were actually constructing and reconstructing power and ideas of power back in the Bronze Age.
Yeah, and I think this idea of power is really important. I know I've talked about this tomb on this channel. I have a whole video on it. Well, it's most of that video. It's about sort of Mycenaean graves. Did I just ruin my picture? Let me get my picture of me in there again, just to give some context.
Yes.
No, that's not that. Well, that also works. That's from Stefan Milo's book. Um, uh, Yeah, sure. We can just show that one because that's handy right this second. So this is a little too big. This is supposed the trench supervisor and me, and it was a shaft grave that was about human size, and it
Yep.
was filled with it had several dozen of these seal stones, and then it also had a ton of armor, and then silver and gold. It was actually really surreal to excavate, and to me, it gave me a sense of power in and of itself, where there's just so much material that you're disposing of in a sense you're consuming by putting it within a grave that evokes the power of those who offered the materials to this dead individual, and so
Yes.
that power is right there, quite visible in and of itself. And at the same time, the many dozen of these they could maybe represent from different individuals that were giving them, or we don't really know, it might
Yeah.
not be, but that's certainly a possibility.
Mhm.
um yeah, someone says I look 3'6" tall in here. Yeah, I mean the grave itself is just a little too big in this, though it's a great book. And it's what is this called? I'm blanking. It's by Stefan Milosevic, Miloslavich. But it's 50 Wonders of the Ancient World, something like that. I'm blanking, but
Mhm.
yeah. So it's an awesome book. Stefan Milo, the YouTuber we're talking about.
Yes.
But the agate itself. So this is what, like this big, something like that. It's
It's
absolutely
it's
tiny.
just over an inch, I
Yeah.
believe. It's tiny, and every martial iconography seal or seal stone I was working on with my dissertation was not bigger than 2 inches. It was massively tiny in the miniature realm for the Aegean world, whereas in Egypt, of course, they are massive and
Yeah,
monumental
yeah.
in size. So it was quite a comparison to figure out visibility, audience, portability, all of that kind of stuff, and just try and tackle and try to understand this.
Yeah, and try to transfer that art form to different media and stuff like
Yep.
that. And just to give people a sense as well, since there's so many people here that sometimes think about pseudo archaeology,
Mhm.
agate is a hard stone,
Yes.
just harder than granite, and the
Mhm.
kind of details here are so precise that it's within a human hair of precision. So when we're talking about precision in hard stone with Bronze Age technology, this is an example of the Greeks doing that. So to think that the Egyptians couldn't do that and needed some sort of weird Atlantis or aliens type thing, kiss my fucking ass. Because this kind of stone shows the ability of human craftsmanship to be able to work in hard stone with Bronze Age technology at a level of precision that is just, an intricacy that is just, I mean, absolutely stunning and amazing. This kind of detail, all
Yeah,
within that sort of space. And I mean,
100%.
yeah,
I
and it's
just
just so almost translucent. It's just, yeah, it's just phenomenal. And this, of course, is how you could see it. So, all right, what detail do you want to start with?
I
Let's
don't
walk through
know.
what's going on here.
I mean, you lived my dream digging this. So is there any place that you wanna start with?
Hmm.
Like any favorite part of it that
See,
you
none of this resembles the armor in the grave, so it doesn't relate to the context in that way.
Mm,
The grave itself was just full of a full suit of armor and stuff like that. I mean, so when I was digging it, we had to dig really quickly, and because we thought that the tomb was looted, just like the other shaft grave
yeah.
at Pylos, up in the palace, and we only had a very limited dig schedule. So I was the one being the most experienced person that had to dig in there every day with a big pick, and so I told, and I had no choice. I was a student, and I was like,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
just
want to dig in here with a big pick, but my superiors are telling me I have to. So, yeah. And so I was like, well, then I will do it, since people with less experience should not be responsible for breaking something. And so I
yep.
told everybody, I said, look, I will break one thing, and then we'll dig it right. And I broke off a piece of bronze about this big
Oh my god.
from a vessel, a spouted vessel about this big. If we go back to, if I can find that photo again.
Did your heart sink when you heard that tink with the big
No,
pick?
I expected it at some point because I didn't want to be in there. So right here is the spouted vessel. It's this.
Oh,
Here's the
yes.
spout to it, right? And it's this
Mhm.
thing. This little fragment right here is what my big pick broke off. Um, Thank you, Arcanum, by the way. I appreciate the super thanks. There's super chat. And so yeah, I broke off this little segment right here. And my friend Alice Crow, who just got a job at FSU, she started last year, I guess. She was up here. She was like a first or second year grad student, so she was up here where this brush is when that happened. And I'm telling you, she's wrong, but she remembers this piece of bronze like flying up into the air. No, it just went thunk,
Yeah.
and then we got conservators in there, but it was amazing. Within the course of a day, we just started brushing, and we just hit this layer of just pure bronze everywhere. It was just
Oh.
like fucking nuts, and there was like this the because of the clay there and the
Mhm.
anaerobic conditions, and so much bronze helps preserve organic material. There was like the faintest outline of either the wooden casket or the wooden slabs, depending on your interpretation of the
Yeah.
context, and so we could see them, and yeah, I still disagree with the directors on this slab. I actually think it was a headstone. They think it's a cover slab.
Okay.
It's
So, like, a
beveled
little
at the
bit.
bottom, and the way it fell in, I don't buy their explanation, but whatever. They're the directors.
So do you
Jack
think
and Sherry, if you're listening, you're wrong.
it's more like what was discovered in Grave Circle A in terms of headstones?
Yeah, that's what I think. And the way it fell in, I think that it probably had wooden covering, and it
Yeah.
eventually eroded and fell down. But the bottom part, it narrows down. It's kind of beveled as if it was slotting into something. And just the way it's all flat, and it's just triangular. It's
Yeah.
wide at the base and comes to a triangle. And there's no other large slabs for a stone cover slab. This was a big debate we had all season. Um, and they took their own interpretation and ignored mine, and that's just life. It doesn't really impact the rest of the material in the grave, so
Mhm.
there's no point in arguing it vociferously, even though we did at the time. And, but yeah, so it was a crazy experience. It really was, and seeing this stuff slowly come out, because it's taken so much work to conserve everything,
Mhm.
because it's just so much material. We had conservators on hand, so it was because it was more metal than soil.
Yeah.
So it was largely excavated eventually by conservators to make sure to be able to lift out things appropriately.
That makes
Um, while we sort of supervised and mapped things out and did photogrammetry and that kind of stuff. But these seal stones were all encrusted,
yeah.
so I couldn't see any of this stuff for years, and I still not seen it in person. Hopefully, when this stuff goes back to Greece, I can go down there and see some of this stuff in person.
Yeah, it's
Um,
gonna be going to or it is
it
currently
is in the Getty.
already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the Getty now. So if you're in LA, all of this material from this grave is now, well, not all of it, but the
A
bulk
good
of the
amount.
nice stuff is in the Getty right now,
Nice.
temporarily. And I think it might even be going somewhere else afterwards before it
It's going
gets back to
to,
Greece.
Athens,
Yeah.
National Museum in Athens, right,
Yeah.
in January, I believe, so I'll be able to see this when I go home for Christmas.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Wait, when you go home, you live in Greece?
No, 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 when I go back to Southern California. I'm originally from
Oh, gotcha. All right. That makes
Southern
more sense.
California.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so all right, let's think about this. So I might have an answer for this. I don't know, but let's see what you think.
Yes.
Why is this dude not have any armor on when he's in a burial full of armor? None of
Be
them have armor on, do they?
I'm sorry?
None of them really have armor. This guy's a big shield, but yeah.
Yeah, none of them really have armor on, and I've postulated that he represents a new figure within the, I guess, visual narrative during this time of the victorious warrior. So he doesn't have armor because he doesn't need armor to win. It
He's
is
just that damn good.
he's that good. Is this, an emerging warrior or hero, mythos at this time? Does he represent this figure from an oral tradition where people striving to be him? He is really, from my own work, the quintessential, like the capital THE bold underline warrior. Like
Okay.
he is incredible. So in scenes where he is really only with a sword, it's because that's all he needs to win.
Okay. He's like Achilles. He just has his heel that is exposed. Let's not go there. We're not going to go that precise just yet. But, you can almost see that he has something over his heel here.
Yeah, so when I was looking at that in my dissertation, I couldn't tell if it was part of perhaps like an anklet or other jewelry around his leg, or if it was part of, footwear, like a type of sandal or something, because we don't see it anywhere else on who he is, fighting against.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because we can't see his other leg to see if
Yeah.
it's on his other leg, and the other dudes don't have anything like that,
Yeah. And even at
including the
that
deceased
point,
one.
it's almost as if these artisans are already kind of othering these characters to show, no, it's the victorious warrior who's going to utterly conquer these other two men.
Yeah, I'm just replying to Arcanum that it was not the Athenians that were the inspiration for House Atreides. The Atreides actually means the children of Atreus. So
Mhm.
Agamemnon and
Oh,
Menelaus
Cornelius.
were the two Atreides, the sons of Atreus. But yeah, thank you so much again, Arcanum. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and so that is interesting. I had not actually noticed that before. Okay. So let's move on. So we
Yeah.
have the fact that they're not wearing much. This guy though has a helmet and a shield, so he's a little less heroic, I suppose. And a spear.
Yes. So
So is this a typical type of shield for the period?
yes, so this is very typical of the warrior's panoply that we do see in martial iconography during this time. So the spear or lance that he is holding is normal. We see this in other martial scenes as well on the mainland of Greece. And the helmet is really interesting because we do see this type of plume occur at Mycenae in images, but the design that's on it, I know Sherry and Jack have talked about it could be a whole metal helmet or the design could be metal on a leather helmet. So
Okay. Yeah,
it's
I can
really
see that as
interesting.
either, yeah, like a stud type thing.
Yeah, and the shield type that he is using, and it's not doing him really any good, unfortunately, for our buddy. It's actually a figure of eight shield that was also very common during this time as well.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I see that here. Yeah.
Mhm.
So do we have a figure of eight? I can look up one.
Uh, there's a figure of eight. Those are towers.
There's
Right
one.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, but we should get one that looks like an 8.
Oh, yeah, from head on. I think,
Here, I can pull one up.
yeah, like one of the ivory ones.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is kind of what it looks
Yeah.
like. Exactly. And so, I mean, some of these are replicas, some of these are iconography, but that's why it's called a figure of 8 because it kind of looks like a modern figure of 8.
Yep.
And so you see that they're trying to deal with that perspective from the side here
Hmm.
in a weird way.
Yeah, and the stitching is also interesting because it may tell us or point in a direction of maybe who this man belonged to, if he was from a different group or something.
Okay.
Hmm.
So it's like a symbol to represent who they are or what group they're from, perhaps.
Yeah, because in other representations, we see animal skin or animal hide being depicted on it.
Yeah, like these here. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. All right. Not a boar's tusk helmet though.
Not a boar's tusk. So that's what's been really interesting of, is it a metal helmet or is it a metal design on a leather helmet?
So
We
I'm going to put you on the spot here.
don't
I'm going to put you on the spot. This is a test for you, Tenn.
know.
This is a test which most people don't pass, so don't worry, you're fine. It's one of my pet peeves about all you weapons people. So what animal is a boar's tusk helmet made from?
Isn't it a wild boar?
This is
Or
repeated. I'm a
it's
zooarchaeologist, okay? So when you look at those
is it
boar's tusks,
a
it
pig?
could be a wild boar, but it could also just be a domestic male pig.
Okay.
And so there's no reason. There's so many people that have spilled so much ink on the number of wild boar that need to be fucking hunted to make a boar's tusk helmet.
Yep.
And it's like, no, you just need to raise a bunch of male pigs to adulthood and
Mhm.
you can get your boar's tusk helmet. And so there's no zooarchaeological distinction beyond size. And all of those are sawn up to the point. And even then, the size actually just relates more to age. And
Okay.
so the longer a male boar, whether wild or domestic, is alive, the more its tusks keep growing. And so there's no morphological distinction, though, between a domestic boar's tusk and a wild boar's tusk. So there's no reason that these are hunting trophies or things like that.
No.
So do not make that mistake in print like so many of your colleagues have. I've had
Oh, no.
arguments with people. And you know what? Even in Homer's Iliad, the term used for the boar's tusk helmet for boar is domestic pig, huios,
Mhm.
not caprios, which is boar, wild boar. And so it actually really annoys me that people don't even get that. Not you. Again, this is a problem with your field
It
of
would
study.
it would make the most sense if you are going to need that many, tusks to almost kind of farm it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It would make by far the most sense in many ways.
Work smarter, not harder. Come on.
No, Jack certainly knows this, as do many others that me and like Paul Halstead and others have talked to. But like for some reason, this just keeps persisting in the literature, and it's just like it is not necessarily a wild boar, and in fact, all the evidence we have would suggest it's unlikely to be wild boar.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, there should be, within papers and academic discourse of wild boar slash, just domesticated male pig.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you would think that since Homer refers to wild boar elsewhere in his poems,
Mhm.
why would it just be called huios here and not caprios? It makes no sense other than maybe this actually is a domestic pig, which would make the most sense economically anyway. Okay,
Mhm.
sorry. That's an aside. That's not part of this image. You didn't pass the test, but that's okay. You're passing it with everything else. So okay, I what is this thing down here?
So that is believed to be a scabbard for the sword of the fallen figure who's delineating the ground line underneath the victorious warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And it matches beautifully the scabbard that is tied around the victorious warrior's waist that's flailing behind him.
Okay. Okay, I see that. Yeah, that does make sense. Huh. Interesting. All right. And then what kind of sword does this dude have?
Okay, so
Now you're into your home game.
so there has been, I believe Sherry and Jack have talked and discussed about this, that it's likely type A, type B. I believe I've also seen discourse on it being a type C, but because of the horned hilt of the sword that he is holding, I personally think it's more fitted and more well suited, I should say, to be a type B because it fits in with the chronology. It is a whole lot better than type A, and we actually have really great parallels to this, sword from the shaft graves as well. I think it's grave 5, grave 4. It's one of them.
Let's pull up some images of these different types of swords for people.
Mhm.
Wait a second. No, that's not showing up. There we go. Here's some examples. Something like this. So which one is which here? Is this? No. There we go.
I was gonna say,
No, none of these are it. Sorry. This
mm-mm.
is not helping me. These guys here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There we go. So what are these?
So that is
These are type A.
yeah, those are all type A, and type A comparatively to type B, they are a lot longer. And
Okay.
The earliest type A sword that we see on Crete actually comes from the Palace of Malia, and it is, I think, 100 centimeters long. And so all of these type A swords, there's a massive range of how long they can be, with none of them really going below 55 centimeters. But
Okay.
the length of the type A and the fragility issues that arise with how long the blade is doesn't make it really fit in with this visual narrative that we do see from the Pylos combat agate. Type A is very susceptible to percussive force, meaning if two blades strike against each other or a blade against armor, the blade could crack and become very damaged. And because of the weight and the balance of the sword, it actually will cause a little bit more strain on the user on the wrist with everything.
Okay.
So if you don't hit your opponent on the first try, it's going to take you a lot longer to bring it back up and strike again, which, of course, in battle and combat, that's going to be some time.
So I'm sort of picturing a type A as kind of like a fencing sword. It's
It's very
long,
long.
thin, fragile, stuff like that. And
Yes.
then the type B ends up becoming shorter, which, as you can see even here, if we're
hmm
going to look at this one down here where we have the full length of it, it's certainly not as long as these guys in terms of dimensions.
Yeah, type B rarely goes longer than 60 centimeters.
Okay.
And they really fix the issues of percussive force because type A is Minoan created, but type B was a reaction from the mainland to the type A to kind of fix all those issues and everything. So it's a lot more balanced, it's a lot more weighted, it's all of that kind of stuff that is just better for different swinging and slashing attacks where you could fight more effectively against your opponent as compared to type A.
So does this website have a type B anywhere on here? This is found in Nicoria. I studied the animal bones from Nicoria for my PhD.
hmm
Here's a type B. Yeah, I could see that, definitely. So if we see this one right here,
hmm
you have to imagine this is hafted into a handle
Yep.
and with a pommel sort of like that. Um, and yeah, you can see that almost right here that sort of widens out. It's short like that. So what would a type C one be like then?
Type C is kind of similar to that, but it's going to be again a little shorter and different hafting, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, so sometimes they're called daggers or something like that.
Yeah, it goes into there's a lot of discourse on is it a long dagger, is it a short sword, and how are we differentiating all of that kind of stuff. So
How do we define a sword versus a dagger in the modern world?
I don't know about the modern world, but in my own work, I have proposed if the blade is unhafted and over 30 centimeters, we maybe should hear it out and see if it could possibly be a short sword or moving into kind of the sword family as compared to just a dagger.
Okay. So the hafting makes a difference and the length, in a
Hafting
sense.
makes a difference. Length makes a difference. The midrib will also make a difference because there is a very early either long dagger or short sword from early Minoan 2 from Ayafotia from that cemetery on northern Crete.
Mhm.
And the blade length is 31 centimeters. So it could be, we don't know, or it's in that transitional phase of
It's 1 centimeter beyond your cutoff.
figure it out in the sense of we should have a discussion of is this blade kind of the moment where these people are desiring a longer blade.
Okay, so I got a question for you. You wanna hear it out. Do you actually have conversations with your swords?
No, I have it with myself. As I look at them and I say, "What are you?"
What the deuce are you? Okay, what have I not asked about? I've not asked about the spear.
Yes, so we do see spears or lances used also in combat scenes on, I think they're in the shaft graves as well. I think it's from the gold cushion seal, if I'm correct in here. So we do know that lances and spears were used, but I think it's Barry Malloy, who denotes that spears, they're great for long distance fighting and could be argued to be used for mid range distance, but to use it in close range, probably not. They would
Okay.
not be greatly effective.
I know that's one of the big changes between the Bronze Age and Iron Age spears is they get much smaller in the Iron Age, and people start depicting them as having multiple, so they're probably more for throwing.
Yeah.
Yeah, versus maybe something like this where it's more for stabbing. Though he almost looks like he's throwing it here.
Or he's preparing maybe to launch it at him, which is
Yeah,
really
that's what I mean. Yeah,
yeah, because that's really the only weapon he
it's like
holds. And he already missed.
yeah, he certainly looks like he's in a javelin throwing posture even.
Mhm.
So maybe there's some connection with sports scenes as well, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, what else am I missing? The muscles. They're very muscular and lean.
Yes.
What's up
And
with the yeah, tell me.
so a lot of the time when we, especially with this image, we get a lot of, sinewy muscles, which the body type of the victorious warrior has been argued to be very quintessentially Minoan with the codpiece and everything and the triangular abdomen. But it's really interesting that they are choosing to highlight the muscles that you would likely have had to develop in order to effectively fight during this time.
Yeah, wait a second. Sorry, you just reminded me of something. That
Hmm.
triangular bit, well, I guess that's just because it's broken. But it reminded me of the Pelecastro Kuros.
Yeah.
But he's also broken in the middle, so it's tough to tell if they're actually that triangular. That's just the opinion that you get where there's a void there, so it looks, triangular, but yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah, so I think there's also the Playcastro Master Seal also has
Okay,
a very good body type, all of that kind of stuff. So there has been a lot of discussion to support with the body type that the seal likely came from a Minoan workshop.
okay, and so a lot of it is due to this type of iconography, the particularly of the human form as well.
Yeah, because we see
Okay.
this a lot on, of course, Crete during the Neopalatial period.
Mhm, mhm. And so is the idea that this is already an antique, it's from the Neopalatial period even?
That's hard because we don't exactly know if it was almost, I guess, an antique or even an heirloom piece at the time that this was
That's what I mean,
interred
yeah.
into the grave, but it does match with the stylistic choices that are being made on Crete during the LM1 period. So it could possibly be unclear about, did somebody kind of put in for this scene before he was interred with this, or was this something that he and his family had? There's so many questions.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the tough things to understand. You can't really date this directly,
Yeah.
unlike the individual and things like that. So that's gonna definitely make a big difference. All right. Am I missing anything else? The ground's a little undulating.
Ground is a
Um,
little undulating, and he does wear, of course, the two-stranded necklace. It does not match the
yeah,
necklace that he was found next to,
yeah,
and
not at all. That's a cool one.
the bracelets on his wrists. The one that's holding the plume actually looks like it could be a seal that he's wearing on his wrist. So
It could be this specific seal. Here is the necklace, by the way, from the grave. And so
it's
you can
so
see
pretty.
that it's very different. It's a very beautiful one. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Um, so yeah, so that's definitely different. But yeah, there with the number of seals there could show that this might be how those seals were worn. I could
Mhm.
see that. If only we could zoom in to below a hair's width and we could see two little figures right here.
You're right. And those little figures, one of them is wearing a smaller seal on his wrist.
Yeah, exactly. And you just do that zoom in thing, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Exactly. You sort of zoom in enough, and then you end up over here.
Exactly.
So all right, sorry, you're a Bronze Age iconography person. So in later periods in Greece, so sort of like with Athenian red figure and stuff like that, they do have a lot of meta scenes. There's like scenes where they'll show a painted pot depicted on a painted pot, and that painted pot is showing in very rough schematics
Yeah.
a somewhat similar scene. Is there that kind of meta play at times in art in the Bronze Age? I have no idea.
It's believed there might be, especially with this piece coming to light with the incredible detail that we have from the drawing and of course from the photographs and everything. So it could be, great parallels to not only is he wearing it, but what was found in his grave versus, the type of sword that was found in his grave, because there was a horn-hilted sword type found in his grave. So it is very interesting to see what is depicted on these miniature martial scenes versus what is also paired with it in the graves that they're
Yeah,
recovered in.
if I remember, there's one of the gold rings. It has someone holding a mirror, and there's also that bronze mirror, for example, in the grave itself. So yeah, so that could be an example of meta. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay, so let's start thinking. You're saying that this is a very known form of the vanquishing hero, and that's what it's in the smiting posture. So wait, are you a weapons person yourself? Do you use weapons?
Um, yeah, I
Okay, so I
guess.
should not get into a fight with you with Bronze Age weapons, is what you're saying.
Maybe
Okay,
lightsabers. I don't
but
know.
you're a pro at smiting. So let's stay away from you when it comes to Bronze Age weaponry. So what are we looking at here? This is another seal stone from Ayathriada?
Yeah. So this is a
Sealing. Oh,
sealing.
I see. Yeah.
So
So on clay. Yeah.
clay ceiling, and I believe this scene is also
Here, wait a
found
second, wait a second. Just so
at a.
people understand, since not everybody's going to be an
Uh-huh.
archaeologist. So this is the kind of stone, and you'd make your mark by impressing it on clay or something like that. And occasionally, if that clay gets fired when the palace burns down or something like that, you end up with the impression of a seal, the sealing in the clay. And so what this is this is a drawing from a piece of clay that had fired at the palace of Ayathriada on Crete that showed a seal which would have come from a similar stone like that, maybe in a different material, maybe similar material or whatever. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so this scene is also, I believe, there is a smaller portion of another ceiling of the same design found around Knossos, I believe. And so it could be, this was a well-known scene on the island. Don't exactly know. But what we're seeing here is an earlier combative scene that the victor here is using the smiting pose, where the victor or the victorious warrior or the smiter will reach out with one arm, grab a portion of who he's going to kill, body or armor, pull them towards him, and with the other arm, much like we see in ancient Egypt, reach up with a sword and place it usually right in the flesh between your shoulder and your neck, because usually that was an area that was not going to be covered by armor at this point in time. And right here would have always resulted in a kill shot,
Yeah, I don't think
basically.
I'd want to be stabbed there. I'd say the only difference is this is in the middle of a scene of battle while this person seems to be running away.
Running away, which it could be, you're chasing after them, because there's also the addition of a dog or some other type of quadruped in the scene at the
Mhm, mhm.
bottom. And what is interesting in this scene specifically is the individual who's chasing and doing the smiting, he also wears a necklace. So it does hint at these smiting figures or the warriors being of an elite
Yeah, because they
status.
have the ability for jewelry. Somebody in the chat said we
Mhm.
ignored the scabbard. I thought we sort of covered it, but do you wanna tell us a little bit about the scabbard before we move on?
Yeah, so this scabbard also matches the one that's kind of flying behind the victorious warrior. This is a great visual representation of what we do see in graves and the shaft graves as well. Scabbards, a lot of the time, are not going to be preserved in their fullest extent. Just unfortunately, they don't survive that way. We do get some portions of them. I know the National Museum at Athens does have some remains of scabbards, but this is a really great example of what they may have
Yeah,
looked
it's
like.
weird that it sort of bulges out at the end, almost as if it parallels the pommel of the sword.
Parallels the pommel, or even it's very similar to what we see in Egypt with maces.
Okay, so you could maybe use it when it's in the scabbard to bash somebody, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Huh. Okay. Moving on. So yeah, this quadruped. Somebody asked, "Is it a horse?" To me, it looks a little too small. It's probably like a dog. I agree with that, or a hound. Especially the face of the head,
Yeah, I think
but it's tough to tell.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too, and I think Marinatos commented that it was a
Yeah.
dog as
Yeah.
well.
Okay. So this is from when? This is LM1, so similar-ish period in time.
Similar-ish period, it's a little earlier than the Pylos combat agate, as it's stylistically been dated to
Mhm.
LH2, late Hellenic 2, so 1450. This would be roughly 1550, so about a generation prior on
Okay.
point.
And then we have some more combat and some more combat here, if I'm reading this right, or am I wrong? Is there some smiting going on?
So it's more combat, but these images are really great with the development of a tripartite scene. So the victor versus a fighter versus a fallen figure, and how they are almost wanting to move towards a more developed warrior
Mhm.
narrative. It's very, very interesting to see, especially because the victor in the one right here may be holding a spear or
Yeah,
a lance
that's what it looks like to me.
as
Yeah,
compared
I
to
don't see a
sword.
sword there at all. And yeah, I agree. It does show the fallen dude, and here it shows the
Hmm.
fallen dude. And so, wait a second. How are you defining the victor on this left one? I can understand the right one, but I see nothing that tells me for sure who's the victor is.
So, trying to reenact this pose of trying to figure out how the human body would act and react in combative environments, I think is something that we should be also doing in the field. So, because of the figure on the far right side, because he's almost in a kneeling position, you are not going to get a lot of force moving up. Whereas it's always easier and you can get a lot more power and force striking down with muscular legs, as we see right
Okay.
there.
And then this one, I could probably guess who the victor is. I guess there's the kneeling thing. You gave me that clue, but also, well, no, there is no necklace here. I thought there was a necklace on this dude. Um, but he,
No necklace, but what is interesting about this scene is the fallen figure and the fighter both have very similar helmets with this almost
mhm.
similar plumes as compared to the central figure. So there could be kind of us versus them kind of developing in this martial
So,
scene.
okay. Huh. I, for some reason, this is me not knowing this stuff. I was associating the fallen person with the victorious hero. But you're actually here maybe suggesting that the fallen individual in these scenes, and I guess this checkered pattern matches the checkered pattern over here, which is different from the cod piece over here. So this
Mhm.
victor's already vanquished one person and is in the process of vanquishing another person.
So it's going to be a two versus
Mhm.
one scene. And the only other scene that beats that, we only have one example of it, is the Battle of Glen signet ring, which has four characters on
Interesting.
it.
So what this means for those of you that are watching, I get this question occasionally when I bring up the Griffin Warrior tomb. Could this be
Mhm.
Achilles fighting over Patroclus's body with Hector? And no, because the person who's fallen is not on the same side as the victor.
Yep.
So this would not therefore match that mythological scene, which for some reason a lot of people want to see in this image right here. It's a
Yeah.
very pervasive trope that people that have seen this, they imagine this as that specific scene. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I could see it being a very much mythicized scene, but yeah, interesting. I never attributed it to
Yeah,
Achilles
I've had people ask me that
fighting
in the
over.
chat when I show this, and I'm like, "Yeah, there's just no way to know." But now I actually have an answer
Mhm.
that I can give and be like, "Well, wait a second. If you look at this stuff based on what I've heard from
Yep.
Dr. Ten, it was, we actually have some good evidence that would actually make it seem like
Mhm.
this victor has vanquished one person and is in the process of vanquishing another, and therefore not fighting for the body of its dead friend." Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody says it could be Achilles versus the Trojans. Sure, but it could be lots of other things. We were trying to think maybe sorry, my audience at times has been thinking of a very specific famous scene from myth, which we could maybe look for attributes of.
Okay.
And now the attributes that we have actually reject that hypothesis, if that makes any sense. This is a scientific approach to even art history, which I think is really important. This is
Yes.
how you think with this kind of rigor. Okay. So this one intrigues me because of this column in the middle with maybe a bird on top. Is that what that
Yeah.
is? I don't know.
So it might be a representation of just a column. So this could perhaps be a training
Okay.
scene. And what is very kind of similar in scenes like this is Arthur Evans in Palace of Minos. He actually publishes a image that does have the top part of a Minoan column. So it could be this outdoor training event. We're not too sure. And what's interesting is it's a boxer in that scene, but they are structuring the body in a very similar type manner to the later Aegean smiter.
Interesting. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, but if it's a training scene, why would there be somebody dead here?
I don't know if I would say dead, but
Fallen.
I would say
Okay.
defeated or deceased. We don't exactly know because this guy could just kind of be laying down. Maybe he just got the snot kicked out of him and just needs a breather on the ground for a moment.
Like that.
Yeah.
Which I mean, they're
Laying there
using
being like,
of the seal stone. So yeah, is this another? This is another ceiling or stone? This looks like a.
these are all
ceilings, okay.
ceilings.
All right. Now we have some more with some different kinds of shields. I like these shields.
And
These
these are
actually shield stones. Yeah, carnelian, another very hard stone. Now I can start to see this as the vanquishing, same pose coming in right in here and right over the shield as well.
Yes.
And then, yeah, okay, what else is going on? But they're wearing different kinds of kilt type stuff. Let's start.
Yeah, it could be. I believe it's a similar type kilt to what we see on, again, Crete during this time. I'm thinking specifically of, no, it's not the bull leapers, but we do see kind of this like flounced kilt elsewhere on Crete. But what's really interesting is with these two that you have on the screen is the stylistic choices to depict possibly a boar's, how the different helmet types and plumes are also being depicted here.
Okay. So which one of these is I guess this is the boar's tusk helmet right here.
Yeah, very geometric in how they would have been lined. And we also see that on the other shield warrior on the other side as well.
Okay. So someone's asking, what is the date of these shields? What's the difference with this kind of shield versus those figure eights?
So figure of 8, and these are called tower shields. You can also refer to them as rectangular shields. A lot of times they will have that kind of bump out on top, or they can just be straight across in iconography as well. But they are concurrent with figure of 8 type shields at this time.
Okay.
And they're both full body coverage.
And neither of these two have any context.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's Crete ?
But this one is from Mycenae, from another shaft grave, in grave circle A. This is a nice one.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so this is very clearly a smiting scene, very clearly figure 8 shield. So now we can see this figure 8, everybody. And you can see how it's almost attached, even how it's made with these sort of studs or whatever they are. And then now we're back to not much armor or anything, but you can see that this person's on a different set of style than this person.
Yes.
Is this person wearing kind of a kilty thing?
It could be. It looks like a different type of flounced kilt as compared to his opponent at this time. And while he does have a figure of 8 shield, it likely could be strapped behind him. So he's not actively like holding it up in front of him to protect himself. Whereas the one who's getting smoked may be holding it to the side, but the victor just kind of ripped it apart and did the stabbing.
Okay. All right. And then these helmets, to me, this is reminiscent of the helmet we saw on the warrior agate rather than a boar's tusk or something like that.
Interesting. Stylistically, it looks like boar's tusk with how geometrically they are being depicted.
Okay.
But it could be similar to what we see on the Pylos combat agate with the swirl motif that we saw earlier.
Yes. Well, okay, I see. Yeah, but I was okay. Yeah, maybe it is boar's tusks, and it's the attachment part where they attach. Because I pick a picture of a boar's tusk is more
Oh,
vertical.
going up and down.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the part that they attach to. Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so this is okay. So it's still LH1. So all of these are theoretically before that agate, based on style.
Yes, based stylistically, it is. And we also, of course, we know who the smiter is on the one all the way to the right hand side from Grave Circle A. But I saw in one of the comments, the smiter does have a necklace on as well.
Yes, good call. Good call. Yeah, and then over here, the smiter's also got this plume, which sort
Mhm.
of distinguishes it as well. And this one's a little too rough to really tell, but maybe
Yeah,
something
maybe it's
extra.
just a simple cap. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
And you
A
can
lot of
see
detail.
the
I don't
scabbards
know.
behind them as well.
So okay, now we got to more Grave Circle A. This is gold. What is this? Is this this isn't a seal? Is this like a plaque or something?
It's the gold cushion seal.
Aha, okay. And this is in the National Museum then.
Yes.
So I've definitely seen this. I don't look at this stuff so closely. It's not my field of study.
Whereas I'm
I'll stick to my bones. You stick to your jewelry and armors. All right, so we got a figure 8 shield here.
Yep.
We got this triangular thing. What the deuce is this thing? Is that a scabbard?
Uh, it is likely a decorated scabbard, and the line on top of it in the background is the loser, the victim. It's his spear and or lance that he again missed.
Aha, so he kind of threw it and missed, and then he jumps in here and stabs right through this
Right
the
through
point
this
through the shield. Yeah.
area.
It really is amazing how consistent they are. But this dude, what the deuce is that? Is that like a plume or is that weird boar's tusks?
So it looks like a plume, but it also looks like he is wearing a boar's tusk helmet with the cheek pieces. So it could very well
These
be
things.
a plumed boar's tusk helmet.
Okay, which all right, that's a good point to show this video.
Because I got a lot of questions about helmets from the Bronze Age. Because of this, let's talk Mycenaean helmets. The time has come where I finally get to put my degrees to use once again. So the Dendra armor actually gives us really our best idea at what ancient armor looked like. And what are we instantly drawn to? But the boar's tusk helmet. And if you look closely, you can see cheek pieces, which fits how helmets are also being represented in artwork. And while our friend's not doing the best here, he does have a boar's tusk helmet with a really fun plume. Now let's talk plumes, because we have a lot of evidence that plumes were used. Plumes are really great when you are studying ancient combat scenes, as it really helps you figure out who's on whose team. So in this example from Crete, this man, the victor, has a different plumed helmet than his other two competitors, meaning combat narratives are developing. While this boar's tusk helmet does not have a plume that survived, one could have been present up here. Again, here, helmets are telling us who's who in this martial scene. We have two individuals with plumed boar's tusk helmets, and the other two actually may have short leather caps on. And we even know about some helmet designs, which you can see right here. And in art, sometimes we get scenes where the victor doesn't need a helmet. And this is when the individual is known as the victorious warrior, which from my own research seems to be a more mythicized hero from local tradition, who develops during the first part of the late Bronze Age. And yes, the victorious warrior here has no shield, has no helmet. Why? Because he doesn't need one. So once again, why have this when this exists?
And I'd like to make a point for everybody. We've gone through so many of those scenes in so much detail. Doesn't that help you see that short in a different kind of context? Right?
Yeah.
This is for the audience because, like, you get the point when you're going through it really quick, but this is the kind of attention to rigor and detail that a scholar uses to be able to interpret those things. And for you to summarize those in so much clarity with 90 seconds, but then to sit here, we're going to go on, I guess, for 90 minutes going through this stuff. And it's like, it really gives you a whole different perspective on that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no, I hope the audience appreciates that, to see the difference between you going through it really quickly and going through it in much more detail. Okay, where were we? So we have the naked victorious warrior. What is this thing over here?
It might be a tassel at the end of the scabbard. And
Okay.
it doesn't seem like he is actually nude. if you look right at the bottom of his waist, where it kind of looks like there's a horizontal belt, it likely is depicting a codpiece.
Okay. Yeah. And somebody's asking if these are greaves. I'm gonna guess not because of this leg, but
No.
that other dude did have something weird on one of his feet. So I don't know. Maybe. What do you think?
So looking at the actual seal itself, it looks to be just how they were stylizing moving from the knee to the shin and calf, and how they were trying to understand the human body and the anatomy.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me too. Yeah, I would have guessed probably not, but it doesn't mean it's a bad question, Okinus.
Absolutely not. No
Yeah.
question is a bad question.
Yeah, but no, I can see these cheek pieces here. That was what sort of reminded me of your short on the helmets. Okay. And now we have the way you mentioned this one already, the Battle of the Glen. So this is the one with 4 people. So
Yeah.
this is the complicated one. Walk us through this. This is your real chore, isn't it?
This is such a hard one, and actually, spoiler alert, going to be, I think, the next piece that I break down and tackle for research in an article,
Okay.
because there's been so much debate and so much discourse on the 2 central figures. So,
Mhm.
of who actually is the winner. So,
All right, wait. I got to use what you taught me. You've just taught me a lot, okay?
mhm,
So, what I can see here is we have a victor vanquishing. Well, yeah, here because they're on their knees, though this sword almost looks like it's going to the neck of that dude. But
yeah,
this one's vanquished. This dude, I can't even friggin' tell, but it's got a giant shield, so it's probably on the losing side. But they're wearing Boar's Tusk helmet. They're wearing Boar's Tusk helmet. They got a plume. If that's a plume or part of the Glen, I'm not sure. But I
mhm.
would say that these 2 are actually on the same side and these 2 are on the same side. There's something about their helmets and the way they are portrayed, though this guy has this thing on his legs and this guy, but they're fighting. What the deuce is going on here? All right, I'm confused. I've tried. I
This
cannot tell except because it looks like from the helmets that these 2 are on the same side and these 2, but it looks like from this sort of design on the pants that these 2 who are fighting are on the same side. So, all right, you tell me. What is your conclusion that you're gonna write us about?
So I will tell you the discourse first because I think
Okay, that works.
it only adds more confusion. So
Perfect. I love that.
we love it. So the biggest takeaway with scenes of martial iconography is there has been claims made in the field that the victor can only win if you have a sword. The victor across the realm always has a sword. He does not have another type of weapon. So when
Hmm.
you look at the 2 central figures, your brain instantly thinks of the man on the ground on his knees trying to lunge up. But
Mhm.
the central figure who has the boar's tusk helmet, who has the high ground, he might have a dagger or even a short sword. And there's
Yeah.
also been discourse about, is he holding the dagger towards his opponent to strike down, or is he actually pointing it at his own neck
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah.
to commit suicide? We don't know, because that then brings up a whole nother plethora of questions about the warrior ethos and the warrior ideology and training that would have had to be present at this time to have the idea of, if I'm going to lose to a swordsman, I have to end it all. It's it's crazy. There's so much.
It could also just be the perspective that they were trying to deal with. That's certainly a possibility. So it's almost stabbing out if you think of it like that. Uh,
That's what I was thinking. Also, trying to reenact physically this scene for my dissertation to figure out, is it possible to have power in a long lunging position, even though he might have a long sword, which seems to be more type A, I will say. Could you
mhm.
reach your opponent? You could, but the central figure who has the high ground in a sense, it's again a lot more stable, more secure, more power to drive something down. So he might actually have a shorter type B sword, because we do know that at its shortest, it can be 35 centimeters long.
Okay. And maybe even 31, like that one you
It could
mentioned.
be. It could be. So if it's a matter of perspective, it might be a different sword type.
So there's not a necklace here.
So I don't know. The CMS has
Yeah.
not published that it does have one, but from looking at it and spending hours asking myself these questions over and over, it does seem to be like he has a possible necklace. And
Hmm.
with the individual who's kneeling with the sword, it almost seems with the body positioning that the one going down, the sword kind of is missing him off to the side. So, because of how his hand is reaching behind his body, it could be that he's pulling the man's head back on the ground to open up that portion of the body to stab.
I'm trying to see where this would be going, and it would be going sort of right here if I'm drawing that line straight,
Hmm.
which would be like the shoulder arm joint rather than the neck shoulder joint. But this, yeah, maybe it's moving by, or maybe it's trying to get to the eye. Which
Honest,
is that the eye here, or is that a part of the helmet?
it could be a very stylized eye, but it does look like the
Yeah.
side does have cheek pieces.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It does have cheek pieces. It almost looks like a cyclops to me, but
Mm.
that's just me mythologizing it. Though I guess it works with the scenery, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've gone through some of the discourse and the problems with the swords and where they're aiming. We have
Yeah.
the issues of who's on whose side. So what is your interpretation that you're working towards?
Is try My interpretation is trying to narrow down who the possible winner is.
Okay. And what's
Uh,
your thought?
I kind of think it is the man who is standing,
Okay.
much like Obi-Wan who did have the high ground. It is hard to, stab upwards in that position. It also looks like the two boar's tusk helmet plumes are also very different, especially because the individual who's holding the tower shield, it seems like he's almost has the shield on his back and he's kind of curling in on himself with one leg sticking out to kind of prepare for contact.
Yeah, I can't tell with that figure what the hell's going on at all. Other than he's got a spear and a shield, I can't tell which direction he's facing, to be honest. It almost looks to me as if he's like running away.
It could be.
And trying to look back, let's say, with the spear, and that's that's a tough one.
Yeah,
Um
especially with his one leg that's sticking out. Is he curled in on himself to like brace himself, or is he running away? I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one. This is where, unless you have such a like a perfect carving like that combat agate, you start having these fuzzy details that make it difficult to interpret because it's very stylized, and
Yes.
rather than being accurate, because this is not a photograph. What this is art, which is very stylized, and they're dealing with the media and the constrictions of skill and materials and time and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
the
This is in
only
gold,
example.
right?
It is gold, and
Okay.
this is the only example that we do have where there are 4 figures rather than 2 or 3.
Okay. But it's not the only piece we've seen in gold. We saw an earlier one in gold also from the shaft graves, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the one with the 2 figures.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just making sure.
Mhm.
Now, could some of this stylization have to do with gold because it's softer material? It's not going to be able to have as much detail as a really hard stone like agate or carnelian?
It could be, or it could be that they got enough of the story across for what it was supposed to showcase and what it was supposed to highlight.
Yeah.
Because
That
at the
makes sense.
day, what can most people do in the ancient world is visually see and understand art.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. But what about the helmets of these two? Because these two seem to not have your typical boar's tusk helmets, and there's something different coming up here, and there's nothing plume wise on this one.
So the individual who's defeated
Hmm.
on the ground, he looks like he's wearing a leather cap
Okay, that
that
makes
would have
sense.
just kind of snugly fit right on. And the individual with the longer sword in the center, it could be hair with different depictions of how hair, whether it's short with maybe like little alfalfas sticking up on the top, or it could be another very stylized short cap that was to be really close to your head.
Okay. And then what do you make of these two, even though they seem to be fighting, having the same kind of pants on or whatever the hell these things are?
It could be that the idea of the helmet, the potential necklace, and the weaponry was enough to separate the two.
Okay.
It honestly, it depends. It could be a workshop preference, an artisan preference, who, maybe it was the preference of who commissioned the piece. Could be that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they're on the same side and one of them betrayed the other.
I mean, that would be cool.
That would be very cool. All right, that's cool. Yeah, I don't remember that one. Okay, so here we are. This is the Griffin Warrior necklace.
Hmm.
What's going on with these two? Are we back to the combat agate with this one?
Oh, yeah, I just brought in a very detailed
Yeah.
version of the agate to show the double-stranded necklace with the two strands
Aha,
coming from
gotcha.
behind his neck to show, hey, we do have evidence of necklaces being used, and of course, a great parallel coming from Crete.
Okay. And then this one we'd seen earlier as well.
Hmm.
So wow, this is crazy. So this is definitely a type of scene that shows up repeatedly. And then you say that we also get this in Egypt as well. Do we have
Yeah,
one of
and
these
what's
in here?
what's
Yeah, we do.
interesting
Okay.
is in the Aegean world, because we have yet to find any of these Aegeanized smiting scenes in the Cyclades. We only have them on Crete and the mainland at this point in time, and we only have them in miniature. We don't have them in ivory carvings. We don't have them in wall paintings or anything like that. And what's fascinating is after LH2B, let's call it, the Palace Combat Agate is the latest addition to the corpus that we have. After that point in time, there seems to be a preference changing of no longer showing man versus man in combat scenes. There seems to be more of a preference of men fighting uh, legendary beasts, lions, all of that kind of stuff to show power that way in hunting.
Okay.
Or, of course, very late in the Bronze Age with the warrior base, we see preference towards military training scenes or scenes of armies gathered together, more ritualized scenes. We don't see, after this point in time, men versus men again.
Yeah. So just to show people also from Mycenae, you get these
Mhm.
kind of Niello of gold on bronze daggers or others. I mean, it's not always this, but the kind
Yeah,
of lion hunt. It's not zooming in very well, is it?
it's so pretty.
Um, well, whatever. But yeah, so you get these kind of lion hunts that are very, very common also in frescoes and elsewhere.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah. Okay, that's cool. And then this is a good example of how you're comparing the sword and the iconography to examples that we have. Is this piece from the Griffin Warrior tomb?
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
that's
Very-
from the tomb, and then the other one is from Mycenae.
Yeah, yeah. But then yeah, so this is a Type A sword. You can see how long it is.
That's the earliest, yeah, sword that we do
That's
have.
the earliest sword we have from the Aegean.
Hmm.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, so now we're gonna go to Egypt so we can get some parallels. Where should I zoom in here?
So that little detail that I pulled out for you is located at the very bottom corner on the left-hand side of
Yeah, right
Tomb
here.
100.
Okay.
So in my work, in my dissertation, I was looking at these power scenes, and from Tomb 100, which is at Hierakonpolis, which is Necken, we see
Which,
a
by the way, plug for my video on the evolution of the pyramids from Hierakonpolis to Giza, where we
Mhm.
discussed the cemetery at Hierakonpolis in a lot of detail with Beth Hart. Yeah.
And this little scene that's at the very bottom is one of many different power poses that we see throughout the entire wall painting. Elsewhere, right next to him, there's a master of animals
Hmm.
scene where the man is holding up two quadrupeds. So we are seeing at this point in time, these early Egyptians are trying to figure out how they exactly want to structure and showcase power. And then, of course, once we get to Narmer, that with the Narmer palette is really where, right after Tomb 100, is where we get the canonized smiting scene.
Right here.
Yeah, so that is Den, and that one is Narmer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because I remember this. This is one of the first examples of the pharaonic headdress on
Mhm.
this with Den. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so, but we're not seeing these as swords. We're seeing them as those maces.
Yes. So in Egypt, what's really, really interesting is their weapon of choice for these smiting scenes is the mace, until we also get evidence of a bladed mace beginning in Dynasty 12. But the kicker with the bladed mace is it might be a mythical weapon because we do not have any archaeological evidence to support it ever being found. And it exists in only one example in Dynasty 12. And then, of course, we see it make a reappearance in the New Kingdom during the reign of Ramses II.
Okay, so maybe it's like a advanced technology weapon where it's a mace with a lightsaber coming out or something. Okay, but yeah, I can see how similar this is, where
Mhm.
you have the victorious pharaoh in this case,
Yes.
who is taking down somebody who's on their knees again. So you
Mhm.
even have that kind of comparison, and these are much larger scenes. These are not this big. These are
No.
yeah.
The sandal tag of Den, it would
Yeah, I saw it in the British Museum a year ago, if I remember. Yeah.
yeah, so it would have been on a sandal, and the Narmer palette is actually a lot bigger than you think.
Okay. Yeah, there's no scale here. How large would it be? I don't even know.
2 feet? It's
Okay.
pretty big, yeah, when I
So
saw it in
yeah.
Cairo.
Okay, fair enough.
And yeah, what's interesting between these 2 is Narmer is very conservative, I would say, and then with Den, what's really interesting is his back foot actually is standing up, so we are seeing an attempt to add more motion into the very fixed image.
Yeah, and by the way, for context for people, this is what, like 1,000 years, not 1,000, maybe 600 years before those seal stones that we were seeing in ceilings.
Narmer is 3,100
Oh, so even
and
more. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, so 1,500 years. I got that completely wrong. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not thinking this is pre-pyramids. It's from way back then. What am I thinking? I excavated at Abydos. I should know better. Um, yeah, so 1,500 years beforehand, where we're seeing the start of these kind of scenes that sort of smiting scenes that we end up getting later.
Yeah, and what's interesting with pharaonic imagery of the smiting scene is it is a very propagandistic way of the pharaoh to blatantly tell everybody that he is conquering chaos to establish order and all of that kind of stuff, because of course we see this plastered everywhere on monumental, works of art, on pylons everywhere.
So somebody asked, why are you connecting these?
Why am I connecting these?
Different
So
cultures, 1,500 years apart. Do you have, do we have anything that bridges the gap? We do.
we do later on. So in my dissertation, of course, Egypt and Mesopotamia come up with the smiting pose and position around the same point in time. So don't exactly know if those were both local traditions. But what's interesting is as the maritime trade picks up and the connections pick up between the Aegean and Egypt throughout, the Bronze Age in general, we are seeing not only goods being traded, but art and styles and figures as well. A great example of, an aspect of Aegean mythology and artwork making its way to the Aegean world is going to be the Minoan genius and the Egyptian goddess Taweret. And who is it? Is it Weingarten? She has composed a whole plethora of stylistic motifs, including running circles, S spirals, running spirals, the flying gallop, the Minoan genius, and everything, to show that these motifs may have originated, let's say in Egypt or Mesopotamia, but made their way elsewhere into the Eastern Mediterranean
Yeah,
world.
no, I agree. I think, and that's part of the point. If you notice how many examples we have, this is part of a shared vocabulary built on dozens and dozens of examples in each of these cultures over all these
Mhm.
periods, adding up to hundreds of examples total, especially all the fragmentary ones and things like that.
100%. And then when you add into the field of evidence where the Egyptians have their own word for the Minoans and are depicting them bringing
Damn
tribute
Keftiu.
in tomb paintings. And we also have the discourse and idea and postulations that Minoan artisans were actually traveling around the Eastern Mediterranean during the late Bronze Age, painting wall paintings like those that we see at Tel El Daba or Tel Kabri as well. So people are moving, goods are moving, ideas are moving, and art is also
I
moving
would
as
point
well.
people to my conversation with Eric Klein where we talked about some of this. Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
he's
Eric
amazing.
Klein.
Yes. So yeah, so what we're seeing here is this kind of shared kind of iconography that is built
Mhm.
up over time. It might have had different meanings in each of these places to a certain degree, but at the same time, it's
Yes.
borrowing some of the concepts. We can even see the vanquished individual right here, for example, and yeah,
Yes.
which is an important. Yeah, go
So
on.
this was a massive part of my dissertation that I was able to hook, line, and sinker, in my opinion, of this could possibly be a connection where Egypt is taking the Aegeanized smiting pose
Ah.
and working it into their
So wait,
artistic
tell me, where
canon
is
at
this
the time.
from? When is it from?
This is from the reign of Ramses II. I forgot to put it in the caption. This is from Abu
Okay.
Simbel. And this is, so reign of Ramses II, that is 13th century. So it comes about a generation after the two examples on the right-hand side. But it is very interesting that Ramses II is straying from the conservative artistic canon in this space, which also audience publicity at this temple is also something that should be discussed. But we are literally seeing the same tripartite scene where the pharaoh is no longer just stagnant and a god is watching over the scene as, somebody saying, yes, this is divine, you should be conquering your enemies. We are seeing an active pharaoh who is thriving and conquering in the military scene. And this is really the only time we see it. And what's crazy is everywhere else that martial iconography with the smiting pharaoh is seen in Egypt, it's all public. But this is inside his temple, which raises the question about who is seeing it, when, and what is he trying to tell everybody at
Huh.
this point.
Well, what are your thoughts? Tell me.
So if this is for his temple, only a certain amount of the population would have been able to access it back in the day. Of course, it's
Priest,
open to
family, stuff
tourists
like that.
today. Priests, family, even you could argue the gods
Yeah, that makes sense.
themselves, because on other walls in this temple, he is shown smiting down enemies with the mythical, possibly bladed mace, and gods are standing in front of him holding out a curved sword. It's usually Amun or Ra-Harakti who are doing this. But this is the one scene where we see an active pharaoh who is showing his military might, not just as somebody who was divinely picked to rule Egypt, but somebody who forcibly could rule Egypt and conquer
Yeah, I
those.
think that makes sense. And I like to point out that we have taught people. Notice even the scabbard is there. It's right
Mhm.
there to see. And so this kind of attention to detail. Fulton also had a question. I'm going to give you my guess, and then you can answer it properly. In some of these, there's
Okay.
this slope to the ground, and in others they aren't. I'm wondering if a bunch of it just has to do with the medium, meaning the shape of the object that it's on. The ground oftentimes
Mhm.
matches that, while others where it doesn't need to match, it's flatter. Okay.
Yeah, that's literally what I've talked about in my own work. It either matches the medium or it also helps us visually delineate the
Yeah,
ground line.
exactly. It's meant to be a visual delineation, so it's probably not worth reading too much into the shape of the ground,
Yeah.
unless we had enough patterns to say, if we had another Glen, for example, that could help.
If we had or if we had it in wall paintings, if we had
Yeah,
it in another
exactly. Yeah.
medium, it would tell us so much more.
Okay. So let's start thinking about wrapping this up. Let's just say that Tenn
Mhm.
obviously has a lot more experience. We've already seen some things. Let's see what she has to say about swords.
Since we didn't get to see any swords from the first look at the Odyssey, we get to talk about swords now because we have more incredible sword archaeology news. So recently, two metal detectorists were actually looking for World War II artifacts in Poland, and they stumbled upon something that, in my opinion, is a lot more cool. That of an almost 2,000-year-old Roman sword. But this Roman sword was actually broken into 3 pieces. This sword may have actually been a funeral offering to perhaps a fallen member of the Vandals who are famously known for sacking Rome in the 5th century CE. Well, Western Rome. According to preliminary analysis, specialists believe that this sword is actually a double-edged Roman spatha, which is a broadsword that is common during this time period, and it was likely owned by a high-ranking or influential member of the Vandal tribes. Now, when a weapon is deliberately folded or broken, and this also goes for daggers or even shields, this is actually called killing a weapon. So, why would you kill a sword? So there are two reasons that you could kill a weapon or shield. One is to join the owner in the afterlife, because in my own work, swords are seen as the extension of the owner, and most of the time they are placed right next to their owner in burials. Now, if the weapon or shield is alone or part of a horde, then it could be killed as an offering to, say, local gods, to appease them for prosperity or even victory in battle. And for more on this and others, you can check out Friday Finds on YouTube now.
So yeah, be sure to go subscribe to Tenn. As you can see, she's awesome. Not only does she do weapons, she does it all on these channels. But yeah, so I was gonna say a story of my own. The second time I was field director was in Romania, and we found another enormous grave. This was a Roman period grave though, and we found a really cool spatha right next to it. And so yeah, so I have the luck of whenever I'm field director of a project, we find some sort of monumental tomb. I don't know why.
So I just have to follow
That's
you,
what
is
you
what
got
you're
to do,
saying.
because yeah, there'll be weapons around. There'll be like other things, and yeah, it's just somehow my luck. And I don't care two shits about tombs. That's not what I study, or weapons. So I want like feasting deposits. That's what I'm into. And
Yeah, right.
I've excavated those too, but yeah, not as field director though. But yeah, so I do have a couple questions for you from my patrons before we go, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
one question, this is long, but I can summarize really quickly. John here is a student of the historic European martial arts, and people do recreations of historic fighting techniques, oftentimes using surviving texts, weapons, stuff like that. So they're asking if you know of any experimental archaeologists or other serious folks who work to recreate any of the period's martial traditions. Do we have any surviving textual or pictorial sources? We've obviously shown some of the pictorial ones. And so I showed here an example of Louise Hitchcock in a dendra panoply. I got to have her on the channel at some point, but talk about the sea peoples. She's like one of the world's experts on the sea peoples. So she's already promised to come on, so don't worry. We'll have a whole episode on the sea peoples at some point. But so all right, yeah. You've talked about trying to think through how to recreate these scenes and contort your body and stuff like that. Do you just kind of do that in like, I don't know, like a yoga mat or something like that? How are you working on that? Like,
Yeah, honestly, just in my house, I have to, like, physically and mentally, I have to be able to do it in my own body to figure out if this is absolutely plausible. But then I also have to understand at the same time that this could just be very much a stylized depiction of a element of what the human body could do, because it's likely that the artisans weren't at a fight or a battle carving as they were watching something
yeah,
occur.
exactly. And probably there's a little bit of conversation between different scenes rather than between
Yes.
reality sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it does help just to give me an understanding of what could be occurring in the scene, but it also, you have to believe understand that people weren't sitting there carving as they were acting things out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just so people note, I had found somewhere, if you look on YouTube for dendra panoply
Mhm.
and recreations, there's like an example of people, Marines, fighting in it and banging
Yeah,
against each other. But
here's
so there's plenty of examples. I remember there was an academic example. Was it Colin McDonald? I think that was running
it
through
could have
with
been.
him, and like
McDonald's done one, Malloy has
yeah.
done one. I think it's in, so for Malloy, I think it's his 2010 on Swords and
Okay.
Swordsmanship.
Next time I see him, I'll have to ask him,
That
how that went.
uh,
Make fun of him over a
oh,
beer.
I fangirled over him when I got to meet him in person. I was
He's a
just like,
nice
"Wow,
guy.
you're
He's
very
very
freaking
nice.
Malloy."
Yeah.
He's so nice. You're very
Yeah.
freaking Malloy. But so I know he's done some reenactment stuff and recreation of swords, and his sword typology is just chef's kiss. Um, there was a new study that came out, I believe, earlier this year, that they did use basically armor based off of the dendra armor to do literal tests to see how it could actually hold up. And if there was a Trojan War, would it have been, something to actually
Yeah,
fight in?
I think that makes sense. That's a good question. Yeah, yeah. Or is that's a big question about a lot of this stuff? Is it more for show, rather than actual functionality? Because it's like security theater today. We have this term security theater. You could have armor
Yeah.
theater and weapon theater, where it just it's meant to show your wealth and power rather than actually being functional. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was meant to scare rather than be
Yeah, yeah,
effective.
exactly. Second question. Would you consider the discovery of a sword that is typical of those depicted used by both Ramses II's Sheridan mercenaries and the Sea Peoples in the Medinet Habu Sea Peoples battle reliefs to be evidence that the Sea Peoples existed? And I found this example of a sword in this relief, which certainly looks like a type A sort of sword.
It could be, and it could actually depend on where, like, or who these groups of the Sea Peoples are. So, where are they coming from? Are they taking other weaponry with them with that? So, paying attention to the different, like, not only swords, but the shield types, helmet types as well will help add into what's going on in the entire scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do. I'm pretty- the Sea Peoples, there's so much documentation on them. It would, I think, be more shocking if they didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, I think that well, it depends on how you define them, whether they're all the same thing or
That's
not.
true.
That's a big question.
Is it multiple
One
groups?
entity or multiple groups or what? Yeah. So
And were
that's
these
where we'll have Louise on, and I'll probably get feisty with her because she has a very set idea on what the sea people are. And I tend to think that I'm not sure. But she knows more than me, so I'll give her the chance to try to convince me. You've convinced me that some of this stuff, I'm not a huge weapons and iconography person, if you cannot tell. And you've convinced me there's more to it than I thought. So I'm sold. I'm sold. Yeah, and so I don't think that the evidence of a sword that's typical would be proof of existence anyway, because they'd
No,
still be drawing upon iconography that they and knowledge that they already know of. So it doesn't
exactly.
really prove one thing or another necessarily. Just like
Mhm.
that scene doesn't prove that the Trojan War existed, that kind of thing.
100%.
Yeah.
It just at that point proves that swords may have been used during that battle, and it wouldn't be shocking
Yeah.
that there were swords during that time period and being used. But yeah, the Sea Peoples are really interesting, and I don't think we can just take an iconographic approach to understand their existence. I think it needs to be a whole, like, multi-dimensional approach. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. All right. Last question from my patrons and channel members. By the way, this is a perk of being patron and channel member. Your question is going to get answered, right?
Mhm.
So this person likes your videos, great storytelling, but why do you do makeup while recording?
I do makeup on my YouTube channels while I'm recording my podcast because it gives me something to busy my hands with. I like to talk with my hands a lot of the time as a teacher myself, but I like to just academic blackout while I line my eyes and put on fun colors on my eyelids while I talk about, ancient weaponry, Cleopatra, all of that kind of stuff. It just busies my hands, gives me something to do. I usually call one of my friends or my sister when I get ready in the morning, so it just is casual, a way for me to just talk and busy myself and really hone in on what I'm talking about.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, I made the mistake of looking for this. I was telling her beforehand while you were uh of doing this while on your Instagram, but you do this on your YouTube.
Yes. So it just helps me, really talk about what I'm doing, and
There you go. Now
I
you
just
put it on makeup.
busies my
I should have gotten the screenshot, but I didn't know where to find one until you got on because I was looking through your Instagram and TikTok. All right, so you do your makeup while recording, and to be honest, that's a normal trope anyway. A lot of people do that online, so it's yeah, fairly common. Okay, do we have time for a couple little questions? Somebody asked, "What's the last known example of a publicly displayed smiting scene being created?"
in where.
Just, I guess, in the ancient world.
So for Egypt, so my dissertation, I had to end it somewhere. So I ended after the reign of Marinapta because I didn't want to get into the collapse of the Bronze Age and the Sea Peoples too much. But I am pretty sure it goes through Roman Egypt as well with the smiting pose because they just continued to use that image and icon as a implement of power.
Yeah, somebody has suggested maybe even this is a good example of a smiting scene. Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston. In its own way, it's a modern sort of smiting scene in a sense. It conveys the same
Yeah,
point.
utter defeat.
Yeah, exactly. Utter defeat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, what are the shields made of?
What are the shields made of? It's believed to be organic material,
I
so
think
like
hides and wood.
hides and wood that would have then been stretched over it. And again, going back to the figure of 8 shields that we have in wall paintings and their depictions, and even on the lion hunt dagger, you can see the stylized animal prints being on those shields.
Yeah. No, I agree. We showed some of those early on. Yeah, exactly. One last question, then I have a special announcement for everybody. So don't go just yet. So, do you see a connection between the 3,000-year-old bronze sword found in Nordliger, Bavaria, Germany, and the Mycenaean swords, given the similarity in hilts? Is it like an Indo-European type thing?
I actually have not looked elsewhere right now, but I know Barry Malloy is a great resource on that, on Northern Europe as well.
I'll have to get him on. I'll force him to come on. I mean, I've only met him once, but he liked me. We liked each other, so I'll get him on at some point. Though I don't know if it'll be on that topic. It might be on like the end of the 3.2K stuff because he cited me in that article actually. Yeah. So that's something I wanted to get him on to talk about the end of that period throughout Europe because he has a really good synthetic article on that came out of like what was it 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, his stuff is really good, and I hope to bring my window out more to start looking at sword typology elsewhere and just looking at the trade connections that may have allowed for that to continue or to thrive during that time period.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, Tenn, I want to thank you for coming on. This was absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it was. I told you it would be fun. Come on. I because you're the expert here, not me on this stuff. So
I'm so nervous. I don't know.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. Come on. I mean, it's understandable. So you're fine being nervous, but that's life. So all right. I have an announcement for everybody. Starting this Sunday, I am starting a series every Sunday, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be called Old News with Flint Dibble. So we're going to go through the news. Here is our trailer for episode 1. Tune in Sunday. It'll be recorded if you miss it, of course, on my live tab and podcast. So here's what we'll be covering. Are you tired of all the news? There's just so much going on in the news. Like, look at the size of this ancient Roman shoe. This is what we're here with for Old News with Flint Dibble. We're going to look at this shoe that apparently perplexes archaeologists. Or does it?
We're not perplexed at all, in fact.
Beyond that, we're going to look at how shifts in the magnetic poles tens of thousands of years ago that ancient humans and Neanderthals adapted to. Or what about the Antikythera device? Is it a computer?
Had to rethink the history of technology completely as a result of this single object.
We're going to look at the shipwreck that it's from. And finally, we're going to check out some of the most amazing boar feasts that ever happened 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia. Stay tuned for the very first episode of Old News with Flint Dibble. And I'm Flint Dibble. See you soon. So check it out. The link is up there. We're going to try to graduate this channel to something else by covering some news every week. And I already got an interview with Dr. Beth Green, who studies that giant shoe. She sat out on the curb and answered my questions about it. And she's not perplexed at all, despite what the newspapers say. And so, yeah, but the deep dive will be into the Antikythera shipwreck, which is going to be fascinating. So everybody stay tuned. Sunday, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern, every week, same time I'm going to do this. So, yeah, that's my announcement. A big round of applause again for Dr. Kellenbarger. She's phenomenal. I hope to get her back on to discuss some other Bronze Age type stuff in the future. Do some more collaborations and build out this sort of ecosystem of scholars that do public communication, because I think that's really valuable. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, Sunday. See you soon.
Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, flint, pun, dibble. Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, dibble, dibble. dibble, Flint
Love and archaeology to
dibble,
y'all.
Flint